Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two friends compulsively download history memes into their brains and then study all of the history behind it, and then come together once a week to tell each other the stories that we've only recently researched. I'm Theresa.
Because our husbands are tired of listening to us.
Oh, yes. Hmm? Honey, do you want to hear about the dream I had? No, but do you want to hear about this?
Nailed it. I'm
Yeah.
Angie.
Oh, hey. Welcome. Um,
Thanks.
Angie, I don't. So, okay. Like I'm not sure who's supposed to go first, but I'm just going to go ahead and own I'm going to go. And I'm probably going to take the whole episode cuz I've got lots of notes.
I'm here for it.
So, I hope you have drinks. I hope you have freshly vacated your bowels and you don't need a bio break because I am going to be stealing the next hour and a half of your life, I'm going to assume.
I'm here for it.
All right.
I'm here for it. Go.
Um I'm going to start with my sources. Well, first off, I'm going to tell the story of the Stonewall Uprising.
Okay.
Okay. My sources: Library of Congress, 1969, the Stonewall Uprising, the documentary on PBS, the Stonewall Uprising, the podcast Making Gay History, Stonewall 50. There is a multiple part series here that includes tons of clips of archived interviews of people who were there firsthand. So you get the firsthand accounts.
Okay.
And then cool people who did cool stuff. They have a 4-part series. Buckle up.
Okay. All right. I'm buckled. I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm going to position you in the grand scheme of things. From 1917 to 1920, we have the first Red Scare. The first Red Scare, the Bolsheviks had offed Nikki and his family, and Anastasia's body's never found. And this leads everyone to panic, thinking that the Bolshevik Revolution in America is imminent. It's any day now.
We're
19,
still waiting.
I, any, just please, can it be Christmas once? I'm joking. I'm joking. 1955, we have the Pepper Hill Club raid in Baltimore, Maryland, where 162 people are arrested. This is a roundup where they're going after the LGBTQIA community, who at this point may or may not identify themselves as just gay or lesbian. Then February 1956, Hazel's Inn at Sharp Point, California, 87 people are arrested. But just so you know, there's a lot happening because the second Red Scare kicks in 1947 and 1957. Now, this is McCarthyism that's coming in and really leading to what is called the Lavender Scare. Have you heard of this?
Hmm.
Okay. So, for those of you playing at home who may not, or just want a refresher, since apparently homosexuals have a greater chance of converting to socialism, according to the scientific study of nothing, they're susceptible to blackmail. And the US government responds by firing them, like all the government employees who are perceived as gay, lesbian, or maybe just not fitting into the convenient box. So that's fun. Then 1959, Cooper's Do Not Raid in Los Angeles, California. It's an attempted arrest of drag queens, sex workers, and the lot. But the onlookers, throw coffee and donuts and more. No arrests are actualized.
Of course. Okay.
I value my coffee too much to throw it, but I get it. And in that situation, I think they probably made a good move. Then we have August
Hold on.
5th.
I think
What?
I misunderstood. So the uprisers are throwing their pastries
Yes, and their coffee.
or onlookers.
They're throwing donuts at the police. Mhm.
Oh, okay. I had it the other way. Okay. I got
No, the
it.
police aren't throwing.
It
No, the police, that is their food source. That is the main food group.
No, I was thinking like there was an event happening amongst this community, like I'm not gonna say a protest, but like some sort of a,
Like a
you
pancake
know,
breakfast, but a donut.
Yeah, okay, sure. Let's say pancake breakfast is happening where where they're speaking about how they feel, and other onlookers that are disagreeing with their statements are coming and throwing their pastries. I just didn't fully understand the
Oh,
dynamic there. I got it
no.
now. I got it.
Okay.
Throw them
Um,
donuts, baby.
August 5th, 1961. This is episode 73, which is the Black Night Brawl, where four sailors enter a gay club, they assault patrons, and that goes, they rolled those dice and they rolled a nat two, and the bar wins. So then we have,
Hey, because they had a charismatic 20 on their end.
oh my goodness
Like,
grief. They had a lot happening. Um, 1966, we have Compton's cafeteria raid in San Francisco, California. And this incident begins when a transgender woman is arrested by throwing coffee at a police officer. So kind of like um, a rehash of the Cooper's donut raid, or donut raid is what it should have been. I said that wrong last time. Now, it's followed by drag queens and transgender women pouring into the streets, fighting back with their high heels and heavy bags,
get it.
which is hilarious to me. And then February 1967, the Black Cat Raid in Los Angeles, California. Over 200 LGBT patrons of the tavern marched peacefully in a counter protest against police brutality following a raid on the tavern on New Year's Eve, when police entered the bar disguised in plain clothes and beat several patrons for exchanging same sex kisses at the stroke of midnight.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know, for shame. Um,
I want to know how that work meeting went beforehand. Okay, guys, we're all going to go into this club about midnight. Your job is to hit anybody that's kissing their friend.
yeah.
Pourquoi?
Mhm, mhm. Meanwhile, you can be
Okay,
straight and you can go to a hotel, motel, lover's lane, the mistress, the
whatever.
housekeeper, as long as, you know, long as your
All of
bits
them.
don't look the same, you're fine.
Okay,
But
got
these are
it.
things. Okay, so now that we're positioned in the timeline, um, there was a bar called Stonewall. It burns. But 2 years later, in March of 1967, the Stonewall is renovated by the mafia after they buy it. Now, I should say that it's illegal for bars to serve homosexuals. And if
So
you
that's
knowing,
across the country, right?
yeah, yeah, or at least New
Okay.
York. I say yes, and like I know, and the truth is I don't, but it seems right.
It feels
It
that
feels
way.
right. It feels right. Well, because this is happening, right? The mafia is like, I got an idea to make some money. We should open some gay bars.
I'm so sorry. The mafia understands business.
Yeah,
Like 100%.
yeah.
Okay,
And
go.
not this
Sorry, I'm
isn't
here
just
for it.
the
I'm so
mafia. This is
excited.
the Genovese family.
I'm so excited. Okay.
Okay. So they buy the Genoveses, they buy the stone wall. It's burned, right? So they go through and they renovate. They do like the bare minimum. They just throw up some black paint over the burnt out walls and hang a couple of mirrors. The bar doesn't have running water. That's not a problem, is it? We can just take a bucket of stagnant water and just dunk the glasses, fill them with different material, and hand that back to the next patron, right? That's fine. Sanitary. No big.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, I personally have problems with that, but hey, that's just me.
I mean, if we keep it dimly lit, who's going to know, right?
Who's gonna know? Where's that sound from
Hmm,
TikTok? Who's gonna know?
exactly. Now, they also water down the drinks. I don't know why they're necessarily watering down the drinks because they're not paying for the booze that they're serving, they're hijacking it. So the booze is free because, again, the mafia knows business. Um, the mafia owns the jukebox, which you pay to hear the songs, and they own the cigarette machine, which you pay to get the cigarettes.
Okay, and you're paying for the bad booze and the gross water.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to charge you more for the watered down drink than you would pay next door for it full strength and in a glass of cleanliness.
Clean.
Yeah, an unhackneyed glass of booze. Um, Now, the mafia, they fully understand the kind of business they're running that could be raided at any time. So they do a couple of things to help out.
As is most mafia businesses.
Right. They understand business. They cart money home several times a night to avoid it getting confiscated by the powers that be.
Good on them.
They're so used to getting raided, the bartenders jump the bar, pretend to be customers to avoid getting caught up in the crackdowns.
Okay.
And because the mafia is doing this incredible thing where they're paying the police in advance, and I didn't substantiate this, but I think it's like 2 grand a week. So they're not paying the cops a small amount of money.
Yeah, because this is
67 or
1967.
16, this is 69 now, but 67, 69. This
Okay.
is the time period.
Okay.
Um, so, but because they're paying the police still do raids, but they tell them in advance and they do them on weeknights and they come in early. They come in when the bar is empty. They're like, oh, we're here for a raid, you know?
Oh, shucks.
Now, I should say that the Stonewall itself, everybody's welcome at the Stonewall if you're a part of the Alphabet Mafia,
Oh, okay.
for the
Okay.
most part, right? Like the bouncer at the door is going to be who lets you in. But most of the patrons are the unwanteds of the community, like the street queens or the gay, homeless street youth who many of them are doing sex work and they're living in the park across the street. They frequent the bar.
Okay.
Now, there's going to be a lot of terms I use, and I'm using the language that I heard people who were there use to describe themselves. These terms are outdated. I will do
Okay.
my best to be as complimentary as possible, recognizing that some of these terms are not what people would go by now. I'm doing my best. I'm just
Okay,
going to
I
own
got
that
you.
right here. Okay. So
I like that you tell the story as it is and not
I don't try to modernize it and then tell the past.
because I think it speaks to where they were. Like it helps this is gonna sound weird, but it almost helps humanize them. Like this is what we've come from.
Yeah.
Like this is what we identified as, or this is what others identified us as. It may not be a delightful term, but that's what it was compared to
Mhm.
today. So it kind of helps put that in the time for like it helps understand the timeline, I guess.
Thank you. So
You're welcome.
queer men, they're not allowed to come in dresses. They're if they feel like dressing in a dress and heels and stockings, they're not necessarily allowed to. So you have people that are coming in what's called scare drag, where they're dressing in drag, but they're dressing in pants. And this gave men the ability to do a quick change into male dress because there's laws around right now where people are required to wear, and this law is like from the 1800s, they're required to wear at least 3 items of clothing that are related to the gender they were assigned at birth. And socks don't count.
We discussed this last week.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
I don't think I don't think I do that ever. And I'm very female.
I mean, but here's the
I
thing.
like
Here's
pants.
right. But I mean,
Yeah.
female pants are different than men's pants because men have these things called pockets, and the pockets that women's pants do have can hold something
Are
more than
not
a
pockets,
matchbook if they're not sewn shut.
or if they're even there.
Hmm.
We have issues with pockets, you guys. Just sorry.
I have bought a dress that was $100 more than I would normally pay because it had pockets.
Fact.
I and that's the one of the most expensive pieces of clothing I own right now, and I will wear it until the pockets fall out.
Fact. And then I will stitch them back in and I
Hmm.
will love it again. Hmm.
Now there's a man who's the bouncer. His name is Ed the Skull Murphy.
I love this for me.
Hmm. He's called the Skull because when he was a child, he smashed a cop in the head with a milk bottle who destroyed his stand. His si- his shoe
His shoe
shine
shining stand.
stand. Yes, that.
Got it. Okay.
Uh, he's also a wrestler who headbutts people as a signature move. And
I'm gonna say this is not at all what I expected when you're about to describe the bouncer. That's amazing.
apparently he does this thing where he loves to rob dentists.
Just specifically dentist?
Yes, he likes taking the gold they use for teeth.
I love this for him. Okay.
He commits 73 dental robberies before he gets caught.
He needs a story all himself.
I mean, he really does. He really does. And you'll hear about him back and forth because I can't not. I can't not with this character. He's also called Mother. He's called Mother because of all of his
Of
connections.
course.
So why do you think he's called Mother? Let's just go with that.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the context I know this from, but I think it might have been one of our previous stories last year, but my guess is he's called Mother because he looks in on the younger generation, like he cares for the younger generation up and coming into this lifestyle, and it's a term of endearment.
Yeah, he's
Like,
helping the street
yeah,
youth
okay.
and all of his connections. He's doing whatever he can to help the people coming up underneath him.
I love knowing that that existed outside of the one story I vaguely remember a reference from. That makes
Mhm.
me so happy. Okay.
So Stonewall's giving kickbacks to the members of the sixth precinct. And it's
Okay.
important to know it's the sixth precinct. Now, the mayor, he's running for re-election and he makes a bid for the police to, quote, clean up the streets. Now, the election's coming up in November, so they've got some time, but they should get moving now because he's trying to win the hearts and minds of voters. And the police make a move to go after the mafia. Now, the mafia is running these gay bars. And while you're there, you can arrest all of the members that are all the patrons in these gay bars, and that fluffs up your boost or it fluffs up your arrest
Your rest
numbers.
boost.
And
Yeah.
now you've got such a more exciting story. And one police officer comments that gays never give you any trouble. So
You
it's
is
fine.
no gentleman.
You as no gentleman is right. Now, the night that this uprising kicks off, there's two female undercover cops that are in the bar. They're surveilling it. They're posing as a butch femme couple, and one of them had been coming there for a while. So, are they posing? Are they actually there for a good time? I don't know. Now, Stonewall's maximum occupancy is set at around 180 people. On weekends, this regularly exceeds 200. And tonight, it's ranging about 210. So it's packed. There's no fire exits. And this is kind of problematic in a place that's already burned down.
Forgot about that. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
I see this as a problem.
1:20 a.m., Deputy Police Inspector Seymour Pine of the Vice Squad arrives. He's not from the 6th Precinct. And he
Yeah,
walks
I'm
into the
sorry, Seymour
Stonewall.
Pine.
I know.
Okay.
Honestly, all the jokes you want, I'm here for.
Seymour Butts.
And Pine
Sorry.
could be a euphemism, let's be honest.
Yes, it could.
Hmm.
He couldn't have had a better name for the night he's gonna have.
Oh, so it's Saturday night. It's the busiest time of night. And he walks in with only six cops. Well, him and five others, so six total. Now, Pine's been a cop for 30 years. He took a break during World War II to fight the Nazis, and then he comes back to police work. The most notable thing about Seymour Pine, he was not corrupt.
Ugh.
And
I feel
that
like this doesn't bode well for us. And in
normally
most cases, it would.
Normally, that would be like, part of the hero's journey. But the
Yeah.
law's to do this, and the law's what I'm going to follow.
Mm.
This is the lawful evil at this point. Now, he walks into the bar with the five other cups and he says, "Police, we're taking the place," as he flips the lights on. Now, Maggie Jiggs, the acid dealing bartender, hops the counter the second she sees the lights pop on.
Okay.
And she has taken all the money from the till. And when the cops question her, she claims this money, it's from being a cigarette girl. Now, the mafia later asks her for that money. She goes, "Oh, no, I'm so sorry. The police snagged it all."
Oh, she's out there with Jimmy Hoffa, isn't she?
Unclear, but I just love that little tidbit, right? I'm here for the chaos.
I need to know what happened to her. I want to see 75-year-old her still with money stuffed in her bra. That's all I'm saying.
So there I was, and the lights flip on, and they say, "Police, the bar is
Yes!
ours." And I said, "Oh, me? I'm a cigarette girl."
That's exactly the thank you.
You're welcome. Now, the trans people are herded into a closet because they're likely to be arrested, and that's just problematic.
Sorry.
I
I
know.
should not be laughing, but like,
They didn't try. They didn't see what they were doing as irony. The police just executed, and the rest of us get to point and laugh.
uh, and additionally, like, you there, you there, you get in the closet, you there, you get in the closet. Like, can you just
Who, me? I just
imagine
stepped out of the closet.
the comments that would be flying out of my mouth that
I
day?
know. I
Okay.
know. Yeah. But I believe this is probably before the came out comments or the terminology.
The
You know,
phrase.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this
yeah.
is probably a bit anachronistic. Now, everybody else, it's like, bring out your IDs, fake or otherwise, because if you go there, you're likely to get raided. So it's a good thing to like have a couple of fakes so that you can like, okay, this is who I am. No, my name really is Jacobs Jacobs. Let me go now.
Will Willis, looking at you, forged in fire.
So the people who are excused, they leave the bar. And as they leave the bar, they pose. And this garners praise from the crowd that is developing around the stone wall outside. And they're citing scores like you would in the Olympics.
Oh my God.
So
I'm here
this
for this.
this is already off to a fantastic start. Now, Pine recognizes that there's more
Vogue.
people. Yes, there's more people in the bar that he didn't necessarily plan on, so to speak. And so he calls for backup. But one report claims that as soon as he calls for backup, another voice gets on the radio and tells everyone to disregard that order. We
Because
don't
sixth precinct.
that's the thought process, right? We don't know because everyone's like, "Who, me? No." But the crooked cops that are upset that their cash cow's getting raided? Maybe. Now, once those who are going to get released left, and those who are getting arrested start walking out, some are unguarded and they just simply leave.
How do some get arrested and some get released? Like what allows you to be walking out the door?
I think straight passing.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Until we get to the door and then we strike a pose.
Yeah, and then we're just like, ha ha. And then it's just
Hey,
like,
girl.
and then, the crowd is getting bigger and bigger because they can tell something's happening, right?
Right, right, right. Okay.
So some people are just basically told, like, okay, doors that way, just get in the back of the paddy wagon. And they're just like, goodbye.
Deuces.
Yeah. One drag queen is put in the back of a cop car. She gets out on the other side. Another drag queen is put into the back of the paddy wagon. She's having a problem with a cop, and all the crowd sees is her stockinged leg kick him square in the chest.
Okay.
He jumps into the back of the vehicle and beats her.
Ugh.
Now, there's one black butch lesbian, likely Stormy De Laverne, who actively sought to avoid arrest. So each time she's taken to the police van, she breaks free. She's taken and she breaks free, and wash, rinse, repeat. And at one point, she shouts to the crowd, "Why don't you guys do something?" Maybe she decked a cop after that. It's the story gets convoluted.
Okay.
Now, because nothing happens in a vacuum, especially in the story, there is a newspaper, the Village Voice. There's a columnist named Howard Smith. He hears the police start to break things up in Stonewall, and he notes that there's something different about this raid. And so he goes down there and he realizes that there's a large crowd outside And nobody's going along with this. Normally they would, but right now they're not. People start throwing coins at the cops. The cops
Oh,
have already been
okay.
paid off, so here's some more. Here's some more.
Okay.
Now, one cop gets hit in the head when somebody throws something.
This checks.
Pine, he starts to panic that things are really going to kick off. And so all the police start to pull themselves into the bar. One police officer snags a dude named Dave Van Ronk. Now, Dave Van Ronk, he is a straight anarchist songwriter who was a mentor to Bob Dylan.
Of course. Because none of those words in any order did I see leading to that.
So Van Ronk, he's at a restaurant down the street. He hears commotion and he comes out. Now, again, he's straight, but he's anti-cop. And so he just goes straight there because he's like, oh, I'm
Good
in.
times. Where's my buddy Ed the Skull?
He'll come back. Van Ronk gets handcuffed to a radiator and beaten to near unconsciousness.
Oh,
Van Ronk is later charged with assault, which raises questions on cause and effect.
okay.
Like, if you hit me, you charge me with assault. This doesn't ring true.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, I would think, but these are things. So Pine invites the reporter Howard Smith into the Stonewall, and they barricade themselves
Because he's
inside.
an idiot. He is clearly an idiot.
There's a bunch of idiots in this story. Well, a
Okay.
handful in
Well, this
comparison.
this isn't his shining moment. I'll say that.
No. Now, each time they look through the holes in the plywood windows, they see the crowd continuing to swell. Now, someone goes and gets lighter fluid from a nearby cigar shop, and they start lighting things on fire. And then they start throwing some of the flaming things into the stone wall when the cops open the doors. And they're also squirting the lighter fluid into those holes.
Just okay.
Mhm. Now, the stone wall has fire extinguishers, but they have really small hoses. They're not doing a ton.
I can see this, yeah.
Three
I
to
love
four
that we bothered to put fire extinguishers in there, but not a second entrance.
Look, the Genovese, they had stuff to do with that money, like put it into their bank accounts. They weren't going to spend that on health and safety.
OSHA. It's
Your
overrated
money should
anyway.
make money. And if it's not going to make money, what are you even doing with it? This is capitalism one on one, Angie.
I'm sorry.
But the story gets even crazier when 3 to 4 people rip a parking meter out of the ground.
Oh, okay.
hmm And in the PBS documentary, one person who was there said, Miss New Orleans couldn't be stopped. When they saw her grab the parking meter, they knew she couldn't do it by herself. So all the other queens and the Congo women started helping her, and they're using the parking meter as a battering ram on the door.
The visuals you've just given me. Like, okay, carry on. I need
But
pictures. I need video. I need something. Okay, carry
right
on.
by this point, Seymour Pine says they were only 6 people, and there's thousands outside. He tries to call again and again for backup, and each time his radio gets cut off. So Seymour Pine knew each of his men were nervous, and he goes to each and every man and calls them by name and says, You are not to fire until I say your name and then give you the order to fire. If you break this order, and he like, I will send you to the lamest beat that I've got access to, and that will be the rest of your career.
Yep. Need to be the crossing guard.
Exactly. Now, Pine has to act like he's not scared and he hasn't wet his pants. But for Pine, he'd fought in World War II. This was scarier than any of his combat experience.
Yeah. Six of them to over 1,000 on the outside.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Then members of the crowd talk about how everything went silent. And that was the
as it's wont to
scariest
do.
moment in a riot. And as like everyone gets super quiet, they hear the marching of the tactical police force that shows up.
Ugh.
And the tactical police force arrive in mass and they form a phalanx. These are riot police in full body armor. So everyone at the Stonewall, they do the most logical thing and they form a kick line. You have to laugh
I
into the
have tried to
microphone.
compose myself. I am trying so hard to compose myself. So we've got a some conga girls,
Yeah.
and the drag queen Miss New Orleans that
Yep.
and 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 we're gonna go against the phalanx of head to toe riot armored
Mhm.
police officers in a
Yes.
kick line.
While
My
singing
God, this is my
chants.
favorite story. Of course, well, I mean, you can't otherwise.
And then, so the riot police take a step towards them, and the kick line steps up to the riot police, and the riot police take a step back.
That's insane.
So that is what puts the oxygen into the fire, and everything goes bananas. Windows are starting to break. I mean, starting to break like they just did it by magic. All hell is breaking loose. And really, when you think about it, these kids just wanted a place to dance because that's what the Stonewall offered, where you could dance with somebody you were attracted to.
I'm gonna say it wasn't like, okay, I didn't imagine, I imagined the riot police. I didn't imagine a kick line, but honest to God, this is the most musical moment of ever to ever
Oh,
exist. And that is every gay theater kid's dream. Let's
yes.
do it. Okay.
Yes. So, as one queen, their words, is getting put into the back of a paddy wagon, she puts her foot on either side of the door and pushes against the police officer. And this allows people inside to escape. Like it is just cartoon level antics. Our man, the Skull, he gets handcuffed to another man. They hop into a cab. The cab is coincidentally driven by a gay man who drives them to a fetish bar. And at the fetish bar, they're like, "Oh, handcuff keys? We've got tons. Come on this way."
Oh my God, I love this for me. Okay. Hold
So
on. So fetish bars are allowed. I am assuming fetish bars are straight
I
fetish bars?
unclear. I'm assuming gay. I'm assuming gay bar,
Okay. Okay.
but could also be run by the
Per
mafia,
Perfect. And they are also great at keys. So, hey.
right? Now, as the riot police are trying to break up the riot and they're trying to charge the group, the area of New York that they're in has a bunch of side streets and like very short streets. And so the police would, pursue this group and they would break down a side street and they'd circle back on the police. And the police turn around and be like, "Oh my gosh, are you the same people that we just
Oh.
chased? Or are you different?" And so they do this cat and mouse game for hours. Now, these homeless gay street kids have nothing left to lose. They only wanted a safe place for themselves, and that place is under attack, and they're going to fight harder than the police have ever had to deal with. And they're fighting harder than police ever thought a group of gay people would.
I mean, they formed a kick line.
Yes. So the
It's the
night,
equivalent of a shield wall.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Oh my God.
So eventually, the antics run out, the sun rises, and the night's over. And the bar patrons regroup and they start printing leaflets about what happened. There's minor bits of media that cover the event, and that's when more people hear about it. So the
And
next
our
night,
journalist, Howard.
oh, he wrote about it. He wrote about it.
Okay.
It's not pleasing. It's not at all something that's complimentary towards the people who stood up for themselves. So
Okay.
he's he's not on the right side of history as far as things happen, particularly with his first story.
Gotcha.
So the mafia is going to mafia. So they replace the mirrors and the liquor bottles and they reopen.
This checks.
Uh-huh. So the next night, the tactical police force is in greater numbers and protesters caught batons to the head. Participants say that there was more fight and anger the second night as they see a person enveloped by the TPF and they knew that there's nothing good coming from that.
Yeah.
It's about this time that Marsha P. Johnson climbs up a light pole with a brick in a bag. And once she got up there, she drops the brick on top of a police car. Now, the police knew where the brick came from. It's pretty stinking obvious. But they grab the nearest person, throw them into the cop car, and drive away beating him with a nightstick.
Mm.
The Stonewall riots go on for nights, but I'm going to take a small side quest. The Stonewall riot wasn't the only riot that happened that night on Christopher Street. Are you familiar with the Panther 21?
Not even a little bit.
Okay, so 21 Black Panthers are framed up on charges in New York.
Okay.
Okay, one famous member is Afeni Shakur,
Tupac's?
Tupac's
Please
mom.
tell me.
Tupac's mom.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
She at some point converts to Islam, joins the movement, and establishes the Harlem Breakfast Club to feed kids. She's 21 when she's arrested. She's framed for planting bombs or planning to plant bombs in department stores during the multiple raids on Black Panther houses. No evidence is found to support the frame job, but she's incarcerated across the street at the House of Detention in a Black Panther roundup. So she sees all of this go down. She's in line of sight of the bar. And along fellow Panther Joan Bird, they're both queer. And them and the rest of the, members of the jail start screaming gay rights. They're screaming so loud this could be heard from the street.
Wow. Okay.
The women in the facility full on riot. 8 women use this riot as a chance to escape. Now,
Okay.
there's an author, Hugh Ryan, who wrote The Women's House of Detention. He says, these women fall into the crack of what happened and what we remember. Research as I might, I cannot bridge the divide. He only knows their first names.
Mm,
But Alfini Shakur, she's pregnant with Tupac at the time.
that's wild.
Hmm. Now, it's during her time in the House of Detention that Alfini meets someone named Carol Crooks, also known as Crooksy, and her friend and compatriot Joan meets someone named Byrne. And they start dating their partners once they're released from detention.
Okay.
So they have basically a happy ending. I'll say
I
happy
like this
ending.
for them.
They find love and it continues beyond. Now, after the Stonewall Uprising, it had gone from a handful of organizations that support gay rights to a number of organizations that skyrockets. One is STAR, which is the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, that's formed by Martha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. They provide housing and help to sex workers and youth in New York City, and they fund this charity largely through sex work.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah. The Christopher Street Liberation Day, Christopher Street's where Stonewall is. Um, so the Christopher Street Liberation Day March was organized for a year later to remember the Stonewall Uprising. And that was the first Pride March. Now, it was basically a run because all the participants were so afraid that they sped through the route and they got to the end. And then they finally realized that people had joined them. And
Well,
so
that's cool.
many of them start weeping because they didn't realize this was a thing. So most of these people are disenfranchised, like the most disenfranchised, the ones who can't assimilate easily. They're the ones who did a bulk of the heavy lifting that brought Pride Month around. And it's because of them that and their plight, that we acknowledge members of the LGBT community and the fragmentary amount of gay rights that we have currently that are being repealed and subverted and the whole nine. Um, One of the most cool things is if you think about it like this, the very first Pride March, the numbers range wildly from it could have been a couple thousand to 20,000. I don't know. I wasn't there. It's really hard to know, but it did cause other cities to follow suit. And in 2019, at the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, over 5 million people celebrated New York City alone. And it was the largest parade in New York City's history, period.
Wow. That's crazy. Good for them.
Seymour Pine years later said, "If what I did helped gay people, then I'm glad. You knew they broke the law, but what kind of law was it?"
Oh, so he is the hero of the day, or he is a hero of the day
He's
because
he's
he
he's an
realized the errors
anti-hero.
of his way.
Yeah, like he's
Yeah. Or an
like
anti-villain.
there's so many like nobody I mention in this story is without major flaws. Like even if I presented them uncritically, they are flawed.
Because
Um,
humanity is flawed, but he at least I was really hoping that you were going to come back and say something like that because of him being the good law-abiding citizen. I wanted him to realize like what I did was wrong.
yeah.
But the outside of that is look what it brought.
Well, and he seems to be very humble about it. He's not like, I brought it on. He's like, you know what? It sucked. If you're saying I helped them, nice.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go home now.
I'm gonna go cry. I've got to cry in my
hmm
shower, scheduled in 30 minutes.
Gotta go.
Oh, and the skull, Ed, the skull Murphy, he turns his life around. He spends his life working with street youth and teaching proper condom use. He is likely one of the founders of the Christopher Street Foundation. He comes out of the closet and he does a lot of work in the community, such as dressing as Santa Claus for events.
mm, I love
He,
him. I think he's my favorite character.
oh, yeah. I mean, like, I feel like I could have done a deep dive on Maggie Jiggs, but one of these
I
days.
think any one of these people is worthy of a deep dive.
Oh, Ed works incredibly hard to keep Pride as inclusive as the very first one was. He intentionally includes ex-cons, people of color, and members of the working class. He wants Pride to
Love
be
that.
more for for everyone and not just rich people. And he even does this thing where he converts a corrupt cop that he knows from his dubious times to partner with him as a community activist and leave his career as a police officer.
Wow. Okay.
On February 28th, 1989, Ed Murphy dies of AIDS at 69 years old. At his funeral at St. Veronica's Roman Catholic, his priest said, "If Ed Murphy is not with God, then there is no God."
Wow. I mean that says so much. Like so much.
Yeah. And that is the story of the Stonewall Uprising.
I am absolutely delighted. I am going to say that the little that I knew of it, I always imagined it was this very intense. I mean, not that it wasn't intense, because of course it was intense, but I always imagined it to be this very terrifying, like ordeal of months happening and
Mm,
not that people didn't get hurt and things like that, but I thought it was so different.
yeah.
Like in my brain kind of almost equated it to the same visuals as like rounding up the Jews going into Auschwitz.
Mm,
Like that's what I thought was happening.
yeah.
So for you to come at me with we played Tom and Jerry all night and
We had
have a kick
Kicklines
line.
and like there
Oh,
so many things happen, and it's really hard to know what the inflection point was. What you like everybody like if you read the articles, it's like, well, this is what caused it. So and so threw the first brick at Stonewall. So and so is the one who, but it's like there were so many things that happened that seemed to kick it off because nothing was happening in a vacuum. There were so many different humans there, and they were all having incredibly big feelings. And one of the things that was the most poignant to me as I was learning about this and really doing a deep dive and understanding how they were the most disenfranchised of this marginalized community. First off, there's a couple of points. One of them is the homosexual community or LGBTQIA, like everybody, including like, the Two Spears, everybody, they didn't view themselves as a cohesive unit who came together, who identified as a group. They were like, if you are clean enough to assemble and to look like a cis het male, then great. But if you're not, then, maybe we don't have to worry about your rights yet. Maybe we'll worry about getting this vanguard through, and then maybe we'll try to open the door a bit wider. But what happened is the most marginalized, the ones who were in clothing not relating to their gender, the ones who had the most to lose. They were the ones that got the most scorn from even members of that same group that, as we would group them today, they're the ones that did the work. They're the ones that gave us what we have. And it's easy for us to overlook that. We see that throughout history when you look at like the women's voting right, how
mm-hmm.
white women didn't, you know what, we're not going to worry about the black women yet. Let us get the vote first and then we'll make it easy and then we'll push you guys through. But you know what, just you're a bit too much.
Yep.
The men won't allow any of us to vote, so let's let the white women vote first. But the problem is we need that intersectionality. We need everybody. If it's not all of us, it's none of us. We have to work at this together. And I think it's so easy for us to deny that or to say like, well, let's just do step one. V1, the minimum viable product is going to be this, and then we'll work on that later.
Yeah. It's to me it's always you said it so right. It is always the group that like time and time again we see the group that is the most vulnerable being the group the most willing.
Yeah,
And I think there's so much that can be taught from that.
right.
Like maybe we should get our crap together. I'm
We
just
and honestly, like the barriers that hold them down hold us down to a lesser degree. But like you look at sidewalks, and this is going to be a bizarre analogy, but come with me on this. The wheelchair ramps to get onto a sidewalk.
hmm
We make those for the very small percentage of wheelchair users who use their wheelchair on the sidewalk outside of your house. But
hmm
here's the great thing. You know who uses that wheelchair access point more?
Kids on scooters.
Kids on scooters, women with strollers. Like
hmm
everyone benefits from an equitable society.
hmm Could not agree with you more. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
Like the dreams I'm going to have tonight.
Oh my goodness. I mean, just hearing the voice of Marsha P. Johnson in the interview talking very flippantly about how she just handled it. It was beautiful. 10 out of
As
10.
it should be.
Like
No notes.
no notes, none whatsoever. Like I literally like listened to, well, I watched the PBS documentary literally twice and then went through and listened to each of the series multiple times because I was like, okay, wait, hold up. But hold up. Like at one point after the first night of riots, one of the men, and I didn't write down his name, he's talking about how the sun is rising and the street is just glittering. It's just covered in what looks like diamonds, but it's broken glass. But he thought it was the most beautiful thing that he'd ever seen.
Oh, because it is. I mean, when you think about it metaphorically, like something is going to come from this. Good on him. I
Yeah.
like your poetic views of the world, friend.
Oh, it's just chef's kiss. I'm not saying every riot needs a kick line,
I am.
but I will say this did make it better. And I mean, like one of the commenters said that the second night when the tactical police force was out there, they all looked stunned. One person said it was as if a dog owner's dog bit him and he just didn't know what to do with it. He just didn't expect this reaction.
Well, I mean, up to this point, they've been told this whole time that what was the quote? The gays will come quietly, like
Yeah, they won't make any trouble.
they won't make any trouble. That's what it was, right? Like, so of course, if you're being told that all these years and then all of a sudden
Yeah, like
that's happening,
in what world is 6 versus 210? Like, roll for initiative.
again, 20 and charismatic,
But yeah.
they know they know how to throw a good riot because they know how to throw a good party. They know what's
Oh,
up.
like, look, these drinks are watered down. If anything, we need to talk to the management about getting this situation fixed.
Yeah, because listen, if they were not watered down, we could have had a proper conversation.
Yeah. We'd be a bit more
Yeah.
mellowed out, but now we're just irate about everything.
We are bothered, if you will.
Mm,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's been
That makes
delightful.
my whole day.
I literally would have spent even more time digging. Yeah, but it was delightful.
You have won this month in great stories.
I mean, and it all started with me going, because I was looking up research for this Stonewall riot, or I should say uprising. I shouldn't say riot. I don't want to reinforce that. And when I learned about the Black Knight Brawl, I was like, Josie Carter, you're my hero. And then Ed the Skull Murphy was like, hold my beer.
I don't know why this keeps going through my mind, but like I want to know what Doris Payne thought of all of this.
Oh my
Like
gosh, she was
she was
alive.
around to see this, right? So like I don't know why she keeps coming to my mind with these particular stories because she's a straight lady, right? Like
I
there
believe
was
so. Yeah, she dated Babe.
right. Okay, so like but I don't know why she keeps coming into my brain, but I keep thinking like I bet you she was on there like she was rooting for them. Like no doubt in my mind. I'm so curious. I'd love to know what she would think.
She's on TikTok.
I love this for us.
I do love this for us. And I think it's one of her grandkids who posts the TikToks for her. But you see Grandma Doris, and it's a grandma. And she
She's
is like
such a grandma.
cooking. She's cooking. And it's
In
just
her
like,
little moo-moos.
I didn't think you knew how to cook. I thought we only picked locks and pocketed things. But I love that you're well-rounded,
Hey, girls gotta eat.
right? I just thought she
Yeah.
catered. I just thought she was fancy.
I mean, she's definitely bougie. Definitely
Right.
bougie. Yeah, I'm here for it.
I
I
mean, you
I
don't
went
rob
like,
Monte
oh,
Carlo and Rolex for nothing. I mean, well, she did do it
you
for
go
shits and
home and eat
giggles,
box mac and cheese.
right?
Or like maybe you do. Maybe you do. Maybe that's your
Oh,
thing.
full on every piece of jewelry you can cram onto your body and then just eat the cheapest like cup of noodles that you can get your hands on.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm saying I'd do it, you know?
Well, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you're thinking, I want to go right now, raid my jewelry box, put everything I can on and eat cup of noodles. And I want to listen to this
Please know
episode
at
again.
least two more of us are joining you.
Oh, yeah, we're doing it in spirit. And share this with the person who you think is most likely to do the same. And on that note,
Eat the eat the cup of noodles or
in their finery,
drop a bag with bricks onto the police car. Or both.
listener's
Like
choice,
you
listener's
do both.
choice. I don't want to
Yeah, do
judge.
you?
You know
Yeah,
what?
do
Like
you?
if history has taught me anything, it's that I need diverse stories. I need these novel bits of info. So honestly, don't everybody do the same thing at once. Please live
Take
your
your
most
turn.
chaotic life.
We support you.
And on that note, goodbye.
Bye.